An incident unlike any other. Over 60 years have passed, and even the greatest investigators are still trying to unravel its mystery. But the enigma continues to dominate everything. A terrifying journey ended in a horrific disaster. Many films and stories were made about it, but the truth is, its heroes died, and their secret died with them. This is the story of the mystery that no one has been able to solve. The Dyatlov Pass Incident, or as it's called, the Mountain of Death. My dear friends, in today's video, we'll talk about a terrifying and puzzling topic that has confused everyone who heard about it, and kept the Russian police and international investigators chasing the truth behind the incident. How could a hiking and camping trip for 9 people turn into a dark nightmare and a mysterious disaster that still leaves people unsure of what really happened? This is the Dyatlov Pass, and its terrifying story that continues to boggle minds to this day. Before we dive into the story and its details, let me first introduce you to the place where the disaster happened. Dyatlov Pass is located on the Mountain of Death, or as it's called in the language of the ancient tribes living there, Kolet Syakhl, a nearly forgotten language. This mountain is located in the northern Ural Mountains in Russia, and it's long been known for its harsh nature and terrifying mystery that scares anyone who approaches it. At the time of the Dyatlov Pass incident, the weather was stormy, the area was completely covered in snow, and temperatures were below zero. The story began on January 23, 1959, when a group of 9 people gathered with their leader. All members of the team were students and colleagues at Ural Federal University. This group wasn't ordinary, they all had extensive experience in skiing and mountain climbing. They held the second-level certification in this field, and were aiming to obtain the third level, the highest certificate in skiing and climbing. They planned to return with it after the trip. The expedition's goal was to reach Mount Otorten, which is about 10 kilometers away from the site of the tragic incident. But before we continue the journey toward the Mountain of Death, let's get to know the members of the expedition. The team was made up of 8 young men and 2 women. The first was Igor Dyatlov, born on January 13, 1936, who personally chose the members of the expedition. You might be wondering about his name and its relation to the incident site? The truth is, the place was named after him following the horrific disaster, and a memorial was erected there to honor the members of the expedition. Let's continue with the rest of the team. Yuri Doroshenko, born January 29, 1938. One of the girls was Lyudmila Dubinina, born May 12, 1938. The second girl was Zinaida Kolmogorova, born January 12, 1937. Remember those 2 names well. Continuing with Yuri Krivonischenko, born February 7, 1935. Then Alexander Kolevatov, born November 16, 1934. Rustam Slobodin was also with them, born January 11, 1936. Then Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, born in June or July 1935. The final 2 members were Semyon Zolotaryov, born February 2, 1921, and finally Yuri Yudin, born July 19, 1937. Here you might notice I mentioned 10 people, even though the incident involved only 9. Remember this point, it will become clear later in the story. The team prepared thoroughly for the trip, but before setting out, the team leader Dyatlov agreed with the sports club to send them a telegram as soon as they returned to Vizhai. He estimated the trip would take 15 to 20 days and expected to arrive by February 12th, and told the club to wait for the message. But unfortunately, the telegram never arrived. Why? That's what we'll find out later. Let's begin the journey with the team. The trip began on January 23, 1959, from Ural University in Ekaterinburg, heading toward the Mountain of Death in the northern Urals. The team arrived in the city of Ivdel in Sverdlovsk Oblast by train in the early hours of January 25, 1959, then took a truck to the northern village of Vizhai. They spent the night there, stocked up on supplies, and specifically ate loaves of bread to gain enough energy for the strenuous hike. On January 27th, the team departed Vizhai heading toward Otorten. But on January 28th, Yuri Yudin had to withdraw due to health issues like rheumatism and a congenital heart defect that could have hindered his climbing and delayed the group. Yuri later died on April 27, 2013, and with his withdrawal, only 9 people remained. Here, we continue the journey with the team. Notably, we were able to know the details of the route thanks to the cameras the team had, which documented everything up to the day before the Dyatlov Pass incident. On January 31st, the team reached the edge of the highlands and began preparing for the climb. The next day, February 1st, they entered the pass. Some investigations suggest the team intended to cross the pass and set up camp on the other side, but due to bad weather and low visibility, they lost their way and veered west toward the summit of the Mountain of Death. When they realized they had gone the wrong way, they decided to camp there on the slope of the mountain, waiting for morning. Up to this point, everything was normal and documented by the cameras. But when night fell, everything turned upside down. Now you need to know something. What I'll tell you next wasn't documented by the team's cameras, it was discovered later by the rescue teams. What happened? Pay very close attention. Remember when I told you Dyatlov had agreed with the sports club to send a telegram when he returned to Vizhai on February 12th? Well, the telegram never arrived on time, but the club officials didn't worry, knowing the team might be delayed. But on February 20th, after intense pressure from the team's families, the institute director decided to send a rescue team, backed by the military, with helicopters and planes to search the area. On February 26th, signs of the disaster began to appear. The first thing the rescue team found was the team's tent, torn from the inside. Even stranger, all of the group's belongings, clothes and shoes, were inside the tent. The rescuers followed footprints, and investigations confirmed they belonged to 8 or 9 people. Shockingly, the footprints showed that the individuals were either wearing only socks, one shoe, or were barefoot. The tracks led them to the edge of the forest on the other side of the pass, and after 500 meters, the snow had covered the rest. They continued searching and found signs of a small fire under large pine trees. There, the first 2 bodies were found, wearing only underwear. The bodies were Krivonischenko and Doroshenko. Next to the bodies, they found broken tree branches 5 meters high, suggesting someone had climbed the tree looking for something. Between the pine trees and the tent, they found the bodies of Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin. Investigations suggested their positions indicated they were trying to return to the tent but died along the way. Strangely, the bodies weren't close together but scattered at different distances from the tree. After 2 months of searching, specifically on May 4th, the remaining 4 missing bodies were found. Or rather, their corpses. These bodies were buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters from the tree near the other 5 bodies. Investigations showed that these 4 were wearing better clothing than the others, but focus on this strange detail. Eyewitnesses from the rescue team said that the first to die gave their clothes to the survivors. For example, Zolotaryov was wearing a women's fake fur coat, which turned out to belong to Zinaida Kolmogorova. Also, Ludmila Dubinina was wrapped in a piece of woolen pants belonging to Krivonischenko, confirmed through examinations. But what baffled the rescuers and investigators most was, why did the team leave their tent like that? It's clear they were fleeing something terrifying, without wearing anything suitable for -25 degrees Celsius temperatures. And more bizarre than that was the condition of the bodies, which opened the door to terrifying and mysterious theories, which we'll talk about now. After finding the first 5 bodies, the investigation began immediately, and medical examination showed no visible injuries that caused their deaths. So the cause was declared to be severe hypothermia. This made sense given the weather conditions, but when they found the remaining 4 bodies, the story changed completely. And that was the shock. All 4 had fatal injuries, 1 had severe skull trauma, and the other 3 had major chest fractures. According to Dr. Boris Vozrozdeny, these injuries couldn't have occurred unless they were exposed to tremendous force, like a car crash. Even more bizarre, the bodies had no external wounds related to the fractures, like the bones had been crushed by intense pressure, not a direct blow. Is this strange? Wait, there's more. Lyudmila Dubinina's body had unusual injuries. Not just bruises and fractures. The girl had lost her tongue, eyes, part of her lips, parts of her face, and her skin had a strange white color. Some people said this might have happened because she was lying face down in a small stream, which caused tissue decomposition, but investigators weren't convinced by this explanation, as it didn't logically account for the loss of those body parts. Naturally, after these strange discoveries, theories started to emerge to explain what happened. And now I'll tell you the most famous one, and it might surprise you. Theory. The avalanche theory. This is the most famous theory discussed by researchers. It suggests that the group left the tent either because an avalanche occurred, or because they feared one was about to happen, so they rushed out wearing only what they had on while sleeping. After that, they went to the forest and split into 2 groups. One group lit a fire to warm up, but died from the cold. The other group tried to return to the tent to get their clothes, but died on the way. As for the 4 who were found buried under 4 meters of snow, they died due to an avalanche that completely covered them. This theory was proposed and supported by American researcher Benjamin Radford, who said it was the most logical. But the theory faced strong criticism for the following reasons. There was no evidence of an avalanche, no wreckage, and no signs of collapse. Even the nearby trees showed no damage. The bodies found after 10 days were covered with only a very light layer of snow, which doesn't make sense if an avalanche had occurred. More than 100 expeditions went to the site after the incident, and none of them reported any avalanche risk there. Terrain and slope analysis showed that the area isn't even prone to avalanches, and even if one had happened, it should have passed over the tent, not buried them. And finally, Dyatlov and Zolotaryov were experts in skiing and camping, so how could they choose a location prone to avalanches to pitch their tent? That's what led many people to reject this theory and start looking for stranger and more dangerous explanations, which we'll talk about later. Another theory was proposed by writer Donnie Icar in 2013 in his book Dead Mountain. It's called the infrasound theory. According to this theory, wind swirling around the mountain caused something called a Kármán vortex street, which creates sound waves that affect humans and cause feelings of fear and panic. That's what made the expedition members flee their tent toward the forest. When they got out of range of these waves, they began to calm down and tried to return, but the cold got to them first and they died of hypothermia. As for the other 4, the theory says they were on the edge of a ravine, slipped in the dark, and fell onto the rock. But this theory faced a lot of criticism because it doesn't explain the fractures in the bodies without external wounds, or even the missing organs from Lyudmila Dubinina's body. Also, the team members were experienced skiers and had never been affected by similar wind effects before. There's another theory that says the Mansi tribes killed the group because they consider the area sacred, and anyone approaching it might anger their gods, so they decided to eliminate them. But this theory was completely dismissed, because simply, there were no footprints other than those of the 9 individuals, not a single human or even animal footprint. As for the theory that this was related to military or nuclear experiments secretly conducted by the Soviet government at the time, it was based on the presence of radiation on some of the bodies. But the Soviet government completely denied this. Still, many people remain suspicious. Now we come to the strangest theory, which some called the love triangle theory. Yes, just like you heard. Researcher Valentin Degtyarev said that everything that happened was because of love. He said that Dyatlov loved Zinaida and was planning to propose to her that night, but the problem was that she loved Doroshenko, even though they had broken up before due to her strong personality. On the night of the incident, when the group set up camp, they decided to celebrate Semyon Zolotaryov's birthday. During the celebration, a big argument broke out between Dyatlov and Doroshenko because of Zinaida, which led to the tent being slashed with knives. Then, strong winds hit the tent and blew some members off the edge of the mountain. But even this theory has many problems, including the fact that the team members were experts in surviving harsh conditions, and it's not logical that they'd throw themselves to death over a fight. Also, there was no evidence of any argument or any signs of a fight or injuries from physical conflict on the bodies. In the end, after 61 years since the Dyatlov Pass incident, no one has been able to determine a true reason that explains what happened. All we know is that the 9 individuals fled their tent in a strange way, as if they were running from something that terrified them greatly, even though they were lightly dressed in deadly cold weather. Not to mention the strange fractures in the bodies, and the missing parts of Ludmila Dubinina's face. Some say what happened is related to supernatural forces like ghosts, the Yeti, or even aliens. But the truth is, this incident remains a mystery to this day, and no one has been able to solve it. Now, after we've reviewed all the details and theories, do you think future investigations might find a solution? Or will Dyatlov Pass remain one of the world's unsolved mysteries? Share your thoughts in the comments. But don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button so that you receive everything new. Don't forget to like because this helps us to reach, and don't forget to share the video so that it reaches the largest possible number of friends.